She was a homeless maid. No fixed address. No uniform. No name anyone cared to remember. She cleaned houses when she was lucky, slept behind them when she wasn't. People passed her every day without seeing her. He was a billionaire. Polished. Insulated. Surrounded by people trained to anticipate his needs before he spoke. That morning, when she stepped out of the crowd and tore the bag from his shoulder, the city paused. And for reasons no one could explain yet, the most powerful man on the street did not call for security. He listened. Amina learned early that mornings were dangerous. Not because of criminals, but because of urgency. People in a hurry did not see obstacles. They stepped over them. She woke before dawn wherever the night had left her, sometimes under a staircase, sometimes behind a gate, sometimes in the corner of a compound where the security lights didn't reach. She slept lightly, one eye always open, listening for the scrape of shoes or the bark of dogs. When she rose, she folded her wrapper neatly, smoothed her hair with water from a sachet, and reminded herself to stand straight. Looking defeated invited cruelty. By sunrise, she was already walking. She carried no bag of her own, only a small rag tucked into her waistband and a brush she'd salvaged months earlier. She offered her hands where she could. "I can clean," she would say quietly. "I can scrub. I can wash." Some gates opened. Most didn't. When she was allowed inside, she worked without complaint, knees on cold tiles, fingers raw from detergent, breathing in chemicals that made her chest tight. She finished every job as if it might be her last. Often it was. Amina had once been a house help with a room and a mattress. That ended the night her madam died suddenly. Accusations followed grief quickly. She was told to leave before dawn. She left with nothing. Since then, she belonged to the in-between spaces of the city. Not criminal, not citizen, just present. She rarely spoke more than necessary. Silence had kept her safe. Silence had learned her name. Across the city, Daniel Okoye's mornings were measured and exact. He rose at the same time every day, dressed in suits chosen by others, ate what his doctor approved, moved through buildings designed to reflect his success. His name opened doors. His signature shifted markets. His bag, hand-stitched leather, custom-fitted, never left his shoulder when he stepped out. Inside it were contracts, devices, a life arranged in order. Daniel trusted systems, security, structure, people with titles. He had built himself from nothing, but he no longer lived as if the ground could disappear beneath him. The city respected him. The city needed him. That belief had hardened quietly over time. That morning, he exited his office building just after 9. Sunlight bounced off glass and metal. Traffic slowed as his convoy waited. A few passers-by recognized him. Some stared. Others lifted phones discreetly. He adjusted the strap of his bag and walked toward his car, already reviewing the day ahead in his mind. Amina stood across the road, having just finished cleaning a storefront for coins. Her hands smelled of bleach. Her back ached. She stepped onto the curb, intending to cross, when her body reacted before her thoughts could catch up. A pressure bloomed in her chest, sharp and sudden. Her vision narrowed. The sound of the street dulled, as if she were underwater. "No," she whispered, not to anyone, just to the feeling. Daniel took another step. The bag on his shoulder seemed louder than everything else. Amina's heart began to pound violently. She knew this sensation. It had come before. Rarely. Always unwelcome. Always followed by something irreversible. Years ago, she had tried to speak when it came. She had paid for it. Since then, she had trained herself to endure it in silence. To let things happen. To survive. But her feet moved anyway. She crossed into the road without checking for traffic. A horn blared. Someone cursed. She didn't slow. She reached Daniel just as he turned slightly toward his car. Her hand closed around the strap of his bag, and with a force that surprised even her, she yanked it free from his shoulder. The sound of leather tearing through air cut cleanly through the morning noise. Daniel spun. "Hey!" The bag hit the ground between them. Papers shifted inside. Phones stopped moving. Conversations died mid-word. Security stepped forward instinctively, hands already reaching. Amina stood frozen, both hands gripping the bag as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. Her breath came in shallow bursts. Her knees threatened to buckle. "Don't," she said, the word tearing out of her throat. "Please don't wear it." Daniel stared at her. Not angry yet. just startled. What are you doing? His voice was controlled, edged with disbelief. That's mine. I know, she said quickly. I know. Please. One of the guards moved closer. Daniel lifted a hand slightly, stopping him without looking away from her. Why did you take my bag? Amina shook her head. Words crowded her mouth and refused to form. Her eyes burned. People were watching now openly. A few whispered. Someone laughed nervously. You assaulted me, Daniel said. In public. You owe me an explanation. Her grip tightened. If you put it back on, she said, voice barely steady, something will happen. What kind of something, he asked. She swallowed hard. Her shoulders trembled. Something that doesn't stop. The crowd shifted. The security men exchanged looks. This was the point where things usually ended badly for people like her. She knew that. Her body knew that. Still, she didn't let go. Daniel looked at the bag, then at her face. There was no calculation in her eyes. No greed. Just fear. Raw and uncontained. How do you know? He asked quietly. Amina's lips parted. The answer pressed against her chest, heavy with memories she had spent years burying. She shook her head once. I can't say it, she whispered. But please, just listen. Not today. For a moment, no one moved. Not the guards. Not the drivers. Not the people filming. Daniel stood with his arm hanging free, his bag at her feet, and a homeless maid begging him not to take back what belonged to him. Fear was not something Daniel Okoye recognized easily. It was not part of his routine. But standing there, with the city watching and no explanation that made sense, he felt it stir for the first time in years. And he did not reach for the bag. Daniel did not bend to pick up the bag. That alone unsettled everyone watching. The guards hesitated, trained to respond to threat, not confusion. One of them shifted his weight, uncertain whether to step forward or wait for instruction. The driver glanced at his watch, then back at his employer, silently asking a question no one dared to speak. Traffic behind the convoy began to murmur with impatient horns, but the sound felt distant, as though the moment had stepped outside time. Amina loosened her grip slightly, realizing only then how tightly her fingers had locked around the leather. Her hands were shaking. She forced herself to keep standing. Falling would end everything. Move back, one of the guards said to her, trying to sound calm. You've said your piece. Daniel raised his hand again, this time higher, firmer. The guard stopped. Give us a moment, Daniel said. The request landed strangely. Not an order, a request. The people closest to him obeyed anyway, stepping back just enough to create a small pocket of space around the two of them. The crowd leaned in. Amina's chest hurt. The feeling inside her had not eased. If anything, it had sharpened, like a warning that had not yet been heeded. You don't look like someone trying to steal, Daniel said slowly. So tell me what this is. She shook her head. I don't want anything. That's hard to believe, he replied. Not cruelly. Honestly. I know, she said. That's why I didn't want to speak. Daniel studied her properly now. The dust on her feet. The calluses on her palms. The way her eyes kept flicking past him, as if searching for something only she could see. She did not look rehearsed. She did not look confident. She looked terrified. How long have you been out here, he asked. Amina blinked. The question was unexpected. Outside, she said softly. Years. A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Daniel ignored it. And you chose today, he said, to run into traffic and grab me. She nodded once. I tried not to. That answer lingered between them, heavy with meaning neither of them unpacked. Daniel exhaled slowly. He glanced at his bare wrist, then at the bag again. What do you think is inside this that's so dangerous? Amina swallowed. Not inside, she said. With it. He frowned. You're saying the bag itself. She shook her head quickly. Not the bag. The going. The words came out wrong. Broken. She pressed her lips together, frustrated tears gathering again. Daniel felt something tighten in his stomach. He had heard many kinds of fear before. Panic dressed as anger. Desperation masked as entitlement. This was different. This was the kind of fear that came from certainty, not imagination. Do you know who I am? He asked. Yes, she said immediately. And you still did this? Yes. Another pause. Longer now. Daniel straightened. He looked around at the street, at the faces turned toward him, at the phones recording. He was aware, suddenly, of how this would look later. Of headlines. Of interpretations. Of risk. He had weighed risk all his life. This one did not fit into any category he knew. Pick it up, he said finally. Amina's breath caught. Please. I didn't say put it on, he clarified. Pick it up. Slowly, cautiously, she bent and lifted the bag. The weight surprised her. Not just physical. It felt full of things that mattered to other people. She held it out to him with both hands. Daniel took it, but did not sling it over his shoulder. He turned and handed it to one of the guards instead. Put it in the car, he said. We'll take a different vehicle. The guard hesitated, then nodded and moved. A low wave of shock passed through the crowd. Someone laughed under their breath. Someone else muttered a prayer. Daniel turned back to Amina. You're coming with us, he said. Her eyes widened. No, she said immediately. I didn't mean. I know what you meant, he said. But you don't grab a man like me in public and walk away. Not safely. This is me making sure nothing happens to you. She searched his face, unsure whether this was mercy or something else entirely. Her instinct screamed to run. Her legs refused to move. I won't hurt you, Daniel added quietly, as if reading her fear. But I need to understand what just happened. The guards closed in, not aggressively now, but with purpose. One offered Amina a bottle of water. She hesitated, then took it with trembling hands. As they guided her toward the car, the sensation inside her chest pulsed again, urgent, unresolved. Whatever she had disrupted was not finished. She knew that as surely as she knew the sun would set. Daniel watched her from a short distance away, his expression unreadable. For the first time that morning, his carefully ordered day had slipped out of alignment. And somewhere deep beneath his calm, a question had taken root. What if she was right? The car door closed softly behind them, sealing out the noise of the street as if it had never existed. Inside, the air was cool and still. Tinted glass blurred the outside world into motion and color, but no sound came through. Amina sat rigid on the edge of the seat, hands folded tightly in her lap, her knees pressed together. She had never been inside a car like this before. Everything smelled clean. Leather. Something faintly metallic. Control. Daniel sat across from her, not beside her. He had chosen the opposite seat deliberately, leaving space between them. Space to think. Space to observe. For several seconds, neither spoke. Amina's heartbeat thudded loudly in her ears. The pressure in her chest had not eased. It had changed. It no longer screamed. It waited. Daniel broke the silence first. What's your name? She hesitated. Names had power. Names followed you. Still, she answered. Amina. Do you have an address, Amina? She shook her head. No. He nodded once, accepting it without comment. You said you felt this before. Her eyes flicked up to his, startled. She hadn't realized she'd said enough for him to infer that. Yes, she said quietly. When she looked down at her hands. Her fingers bore small scars, cuts that had healed badly, burns from hot water, marks the body kept when life didn't pause for care. Long ago, she said. I tried to stop something. And I failed, Amina replied. The word landed flat. Practiced. Someone died. Daniel felt a chill move through him that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Because you didn't warn them well enough? Because I warned them at all, she said. She told him then, sparingly, carefully. Not a full confession. Not details. Just enough for the shape of it to emerge. A sudden knowing. A moment of urgency. A choice to speak. And the aftermath. Fear, accusation, hands that pushed instead of helped. When it happens, she said, people don't want to understand. They want someone to blame. Daniel listened without interruption. Years of boardrooms had trained him to spot exaggeration, manipulation, performance. He heard none of it. What he heard was consistency. Trauma remembered the same way every time. And today, he said, you felt the same thing. Yes. About me. Yes. He leaned back slightly, folding his hands. Do you know what kind of position that puts me in? She shook her head. I only know what happens if you don't listen. The car slowed briefly, then picked up speed again. Daniel glanced toward the front, then back at her. My life is not simple, he said. If I change my actions because of every warning, real or imagined, I lose control. Amina met his eyes. If you don't change, she said, you lose everything. The words hung between them, heavier than she intended. She flinched immediately, as if expecting punishment for saying them aloud. Daniel did not react the way she expected. He did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He did not laugh. Instead, he asked, "What exactly were you trying to stop today?" Amina closed her eyes. The image burned behind her eyelids. The movement, the timing, the moment where everything tipped. "You leaving?" she said. "The way you planned to." A slow, uneasy realization settled over Daniel. His schedule flashed through his mind. Meetings. A site visit he had insisted on adding last minute. A route his driver took out of habit. "How?" he asked. "I don't see how," Amina replied. "I see when." He exhaled through his nose. This was the point where reason should have taken over, where he should have dismissed her story as coincidence layered onto fear. But reason had not saved him every time in life. Sometimes instinct had. "And the bag?" he asked. "Why the bag?" She opened her eyes. "Because you never leave it," she said. "Because when you lifted it, the feeling became unbearable." Daniel's jaw tightened. He thought of the way he had adjusted the strap moments before she ran toward him, of the suddenness of her movement, of how precisely she had acted. "You understand," he said slowly, "that I can't simply let this go." "I know," she said. "That's why I didn't want to come." He studied her for a long moment. Then he spoke into the quiet of the car, his voice firm, measured. "I'm not going to accuse you of anything," he said. "And I'm not going to ignore this." She looked up sharply. "I'm going to delay my plans," Daniel continued. "All of them. For now. And I'm going to find out whether today was coincidence or intervention." Amina's shoulders sagged slightly, as if she had been holding herself upright by force alone. Relief washed through her, quickly followed by dread. Delays did not end things. They only moved them. The car turned again, taking a route Daniel had not taken in years. As the city slid past in silence, both of them understood the same unspoken truth. Whatever Amina had interrupted that morning had not been finished. It had only been noticed. Daniel ordered the car to stop at a quiet side street, far from the glass towers and the impatient horns. The driver looked back, surprised, but said nothing. The engine idled. Outside, a row of closed shops baked under the sun, their metal shutters humming faintly with heat. No cameras. No crowd. Just space. He stepped out first. Amina followed slowly, uncertain, her sandals scraping the pavement. The street felt exposed, but calmer. The pressure in her chest shifted again, not sharp now, but watchful, like something holding its breath. Daniel gestured toward a low concrete wall. "Sit," he said. She obeyed, folding herself down carefully. He remained standing for a moment, scanning the area out of habit, then leaned against the car, loosening his tie without realizing it. The man who faced her now looked less like a billionaire and more like someone who had misplaced a certainty he'd carried for years. "I've spent my life believing in preparation," he said. "In contingencies. In reducing risk until it's manageable." Amina said nothing. She had learned that silence sometimes made people tell the truth faster. "But this," Daniel continued, "doesn't fit any model I know." She nodded faintly. "It never does." He studied her again, more carefully this time. Not as a threat, not as a curiosity, as a variable he had failed to account for. "You said you don't want anything," he said. "But your life suggests otherwise." Her mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Wanting and getting are different things." "Then tell me what you want right now." She thought about it. About hunger. About sleep. About safety. About how quickly those things could be taken away. "I want a day to end without blood," she said simply. Daniel felt a chill ripple through him. "That specific?" "Yes." He straightened. "All right," he said. "Then we do this properly." He pulled his phone from his pocket, not the one that buzzed endlessly with messages, but a secondary device few people knew existed. He dialed a number from memory. "I need you to pause everything," he said when the call connected. "No arguments. No questions. Yes, now." He ended the call and turned back to Amina. "I've canceled my site visit. My meetings. My travel." Her breath hitched. She hadn't expected that much. The feeling inside her chest loosened slightly, like a knot easing but not unraveling. "That doesn't end it," she said quietly. "I know," Daniel replied. "But it buys us time. Time. The most dangerous gift of all." Amina's eyes drifted down the street, following the shimmer of heat on asphalt. "Sometimes," she said slowly, "time only changes who gets hurt." Daniel considered that. "Then help me understand how this works." She shook her head. "I don't control it. But you recognize it." "Yes." And it always comes before something bad happens. Yes. He nodded. Then you're not the cause. She looked up at him sharply. You're the warning, he said. The word landed heavily. Warning. Not curse. Not witch. Not problem. Something useful. Something that mattered. Amina felt her throat tighten unexpectedly. Daniel pushed off the car and crouched slightly so they were closer to eye level. I don't know what you are, he said frankly. And I don't need to, not yet. What I need to know is this. Does this feeling end? She closed her eyes briefly, listening inward. The pressure was still there, but muted now, like a distant storm instead of thunder overhead. It eases, she said, when the path changes. Has it eased today? A little. That was enough. Daniel stood. You're not going back to the STR.